Part 1, Brittany Murphy. Brittany Murphy's death was very much, at least for me, you heard about it and you're like, oh, that was a mistake. Like, that's not real. Actually, today, she still doesn't feel like, I haven't seen her in a long time, but she was just so, she was so full of life. She was so talented. Like, I heard it and I remember being like, oh, somebody's going to get fired at the news station. There's no way. There's no way. Brittany Murphy, especially because you don't want to accept that you're losing someone so talented. And I know that towards the end of her career, maybe she wasn't as popular as she should have. And we're going to get into that. And we're going to talk a lot about the toxic paparazzi tabloid culture of the 2000s and what they did to Miss Murphy. Okay. I definitely think Brittany Murphy, when it came to like the films that she did, she was so fearless. Like she like really, I don't know how to explain it, but okay. I know it's not an Academy Award winning film, but Don't Say a Word with Michael Douglas, that came out when I was like 10 or 11. And I remember being like hypnotized by her. Also, a lot of people don't talk about her singing. Like, there is one song that I listen to when I'm running all the time. I haven't been to the gym in 2 months. That's not the point here. There's a music video and everything. She's got the beaded beret. It was amazing. Something that really pisses me off, though, is when people are like, oh, she's more famous for her mysterious death than her films. That is bullshit. I don't believe that for a freaking second. So Brittany Murphy was born November 10th, 1977. She's a Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon. Her birth time is unknown, which is torturous. Her Mercury is in Sag. Her Mars is in Leo. And her Venus is also in Scorpio. That's a very interesting chart. I love it. It's very like, I can't explain it. If you know, you know. Anyway, she was born in the fall for everyone else. You know what I also read? That she loves astrology. So. She was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Her parents divorced when she was 2. Her dad was apparently like in and out of jail a lot, not a dependable guy. Some people say like he was just a troublemaker. Other people say like he was an organized crime. I think he made that up, but whatever. So she was much, much closer to her mom, Sharon, than her father, Angelo. And Sharon was one of her best friend, like was her best friend. Everybody says that they were inseparable. They were always together, but not in a toxic way, that they really, really enjoyed one another and they were besties, which I love. So apparently Brittany Murphy was an extremely, extremely talented child. The kind of child that I thought I was not. But she was very, okay, we'll talk about it in the next part. Part 2, Brittany Murphy. So Brittany Murphy was put into dance classes at a very, very young age. And everybody that ever taught her was like, we didn't know if Brittany Murphy was going to go into singing because she was an incredible singer. We didn't know if she was going to go into dancing because she was across the board, super talented, could do any style, any technique, very, very talented. Or we didn't know if she was going to go into acting because she was such a great actress. But everybody also says for her it was like effortless, which like very similar to like my childhood. Like I was very similar to that. Like it was actually like very similar to that as a child. I was very much the way I played a dog in our 3rd grade school play. I think people are still talking about it personally from the rumors circulating Sunset Elementary. People are like, oh my God, where is she now? In disarray. So anyway, let's continue. So at the age of 12, her mom started taking her to auditions and she started like getting roles. She was in a bunch of commercials. I remember her in like Boy Meets World. So when her mom was like, holy shit fucks. My therapist, hello. Oh shit. My appointment's tomorrow. Anyway, her mom was like, holy shit balls. Like she's getting roles. We have to move to California. So they moved to Burbank, California. 1995 rolls around. And she lands a role that changes her freaking life and mine. Because she looked at Cher in her eyes and said, you're a virgin that can't drive. Exactly. She gets Clueless. Cult classic. People didn't think it was going to do well. Oh my God, you know, like the Valley Girl. Do people like this? Blew the fuck up. Changed her life, okay? From then on, she gets Girl Interrupted. I think everybody in that cast, if you saw the Angelina Jolie series that I did, I'm really proud of that series. I really like that one. I don't know why even talking about Angelina Jolie makes you feel more interesting. Like, she is so interesting. Whatever. Everybody in that movie was like, this is it. This is going to be the role that changes my life. But as you know, it was really Angelina Jolie that walked away with the Oscar. Do you know that when she died, she was training for the movie? Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it soon. But anyway, after Girl Interrupted and a couple other movies, she like really found her niche, really found her place. I'm not gonna say niche. She really found her place in rom-coms because she was quirky. You know, she had a lot of energy. She had amazing comedic timing. So she started doing movies like Just Married with Ashton Kutcher, Little Black Book. Little Black Book is hilarious. And people don't talk about it enough. Kathy Bates is in it. What more do you want? Uptown Girls with Dakota Fanning. So many lines, so many iconic lines. Such a good movie. But from then on, part 3, Brittany Murphy. So I want to take a pause from what we were talking about, like professionally with her. Just want to really quickly. So, oh my God, I almost fell off my chair. Who falls sitting down? So her personal life, like her love life, was a little chaotic. She dated Tom Green. I fucking love Tom Green. I love Tom Green. She dated Eminem after 8 Mile, which I love. She dated Ashton Kutcher, which we remember. They were like tabloid everywhere. She dated she was engaged to a producer. She was engaged again to some other dude. And her friends and the close circle were like, she was very lonely and very hard on herself. She also dated Fred Durst. I'm gonna tell you something. I know I already talked about how that guy from Counting Crows has dated everybody. Fred Durst. I think I'm the only one that he hasn't dated. He's probably dated you. Why did you date him? What's going on? Am I missing out on something? He must be charismatic. Because, let's continue. So people around her, like I was saying, said, you know, she was definitely lonely. She definitely wanted to find love. She definitely wanted to have a family. And she definitely struggled with body issues. So that she also struggled with body issues. The director of Clueless has said that she thinks that her issues with food and the way that she saw herself started on the set of Clueless. She says that she feels Brittany was looking at Alicia Silverstone, and who I saw on a plane. Yeah, American Airlines did a big boo-boo and put me on first class across from her. So like, I'm aisle and you're Alicia Silverstone. I was like this. And they were like, what would you like to eat? And I said, vegan, please. And they're like, ma'am, what would you like to eat? And I was like, I'm a vegan, because I wanted her to talk to me. And guess what? She didn't. So anyway, so Brittany apparently like looked at Alicia Silverstone and Stacey Dash and saw the difference in maybe size, or was just like comparing herself a little too much. So 2002, Brittany Murphy reemerges in Hollywood, and she is visibly smaller in size and blonde. The paparazzi immediately see an angle and start running stories. You know, Brittany Murphy droga, Brittany Murphy no come. You know, like all these, like she has these. It's either always like drugs or, you know, disordered relationship with nutrition. I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying. She comes out immediately and is like, I've never done drugs. And the difference that you see in me is just like a loss of part 4, Brittany Murphy. And I have to get on a podcast in like 2 minutes. Should I say I'm going to be late? Okay. We are so bad. Okay, so anyway, so she's like, I've never done drugs. And you know what? Reportedly, Brittany Murphy was extremely spiritual. And she's like, the difference that you see in my face is... My friend just texted me saying, how dare you do a Brittany Murphy series? The difference that you see in my face is baby fat. To me, when I watch Clueless, I see a cute teenage girl. But I can understand also Stacey Dash. We have our opinions about her in present day, of course. You don't have to tell me. Stacey Dash. And when it all falls down with the booty. Girl. Anyway, so her friends, looking back now, say Brittany Murphy was obsessed with she knew she was talented, but she very much wanted to be cast, and she knew that there was a way that women looked during this time in movies and TV, and they were right. She was obsessed with working out. They never saw her eat. She only would drink coffee. I don't think I put a trigger warning on the last video. I have to do that in the comments. And she dyed her hair blonde, and she capped her teeth because she didn't want to be typecast as quote unquote the awkward, chubby outsider, which she wasn't. But anyway, so then she meets Simon, and Simon is British, and they met via like Hollywood. But there's a lot about Simon that I have read that I don't want to speak ill of, you know, people who have passed, because he died 5 months after Brittany. So apparently he was not, his last name was Monjack, Simon Monjack, and people would call him Conjack. Like, that's, let's just start there, right? He was a writer. He said he was like a writer in Hollywood, and he has credits for the movie Factory Girl. But then the people who made the movie came out and said that he was so insistent that he wrote the movie that all of these, like, even though they said that he didn't, they just like came up with like a settlement to get him to leave them alone because he was holding up production for so long. But obviously, for superficial reasons, the public and people around Brittany were like, what the fuck? You know, her friends were like, Brittany had her type, and this was not her type. Have you looked at Ashton Kutcher before? And I think that no, I could be with Quasimodo, and if he makes me happy, it's none of your business. You know what I mean? But people, if you ask people about Simon in Hollywood, they were like, he's shady. He's a shady guy. So that to me is already a little worrisome. Oh my God, part 5. I was on the podcast for a long time. Okay, part 5, Brittany Murphy. So we're talking about Simon, right? Oh, let's get back to the photo of Simon. So Simon, people were not fond of him in Hollywood. He was credited as writer, director, and producer of this like one British drama called 2 Days, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the way they fell in love, there's many stories. It's not really clear, but what we do know is that Brittany met him and she was like, I am blissfully in love and he is my soulmate. Okay, so what do we know? We know that Brittany Murphy is very insecure about the way that she looks, struggling with she doesn't want to be typecasted as like the ditzy blonde character. She wants more serious roles. She's trying to audition for these roles. And she was very lonely. She very much wanted a family. And she meets this guy named Simon. From what we know, from what we've read, you and me, he was a little bit of, you know, maybe not all that he said he was. You know what's crazy to me is that he was always with Brittany Murphy. And I remember reading that at one point he decided he wanted to become a makeup artist. And he was her makeup artist because he didn't like the time that she spent. Do you see what I mean? To me, that's a little isolating behavior, okay? Does that make sense? Like, that's not normal. You're a writer, producer, director, and makeup artist? Isn't that fucking weird? To me, that sounds a little isolation game. So they get this home in the Hollywood Hills. Her mom moves in with them. Justin and Brittany owned this house before, okay? So they live in this house now. I know you're gonna bring up the TikTok with the haunted house, and we are going to talk about that. Spooky stuff, very scary, okay? So anyway, they're living in this house. Brittany Murphy gets a role and they're shooting in Puerto Rico. So she takes Simon and Sharon to Puerto Rico. Like the first day of filming, Simon shows up on set and he's drunk, shit-faced. Brittany steps in and defends her husband and ultimately burns that bridge, and she's let go from the project. Later on, Simon's lawyers make the people in the film say like it was a mutual decision, but it very much was not. He very much ruined that opportunity for his wife. I'm sure the makeup looks were stunning. So Simon gets sick while he's in Puerto Rico and they fly back. Part 6, Brittany Murphy. So Simon gets sick, right? Let's talk a little bit about professionally where Brittany was. Brittany very much wanted to be a serious actress, but she, after Little Black Book, she wasn't being offered big roles. Actually, I don't think she was being offered many roles at all, especially not high-paying roles. And what's extremely sad about that is she has the acting ability. She had the talent to do it, but this is what happened. Page 6 has these like blind items. And apparently there is this story that a Jordache model had sex with someone at a Jordache party or something like that. And Brittany Murphy was the face of Jordache at this time. So everybody was like, oh my God, it's Brittany Murphy. The way that my cat loves these very expensive bar stools to be your scratcher is very disrespectful, but you look so cute doing it. And so this blind item like ruined opportunities for her. Like people took it so seriously, and she came out and she was like, dudes, it's not me. And it didn't matter. So these paparazzi, and then also, you know, the bad press that she was getting with Simon because superficial reasons and all this stuff. And then people saying, you know, she's so thin. Of course that she hooked up with this guy. She was high again. And she's like, dudes, I don't do drugs. So the media saw her as like, and she sold tabloids. So the media was like, oh my God, let's keep running these stories. And it was really affecting her career. Like, what have we said about Lindsay Lohan, right? Lindsay Lohan is so fucking talented, but she became a tabloid queen. Tara Reid, I feel like Tara Reid would have been a different person if the tabloids hadn't taken so many pictures of her partying. Once you become a tabloid queen, especially in those times, you were not taken as seriously. Does that make sense? Okay. So she was definitely suffering from that. She kept telling people around her, like, I want to showcase the talent that I have. I want to showcase my creativity, but people aren't giving me the opportunity. So this film that she walked away from was a big fucking deal for her. So they get back to LA. And Simon is sick. And they're like, you know what? Brittany isn't being taken seriously here. And this house scares Brittany. There was something about the house that she did not like. Yeah. So they were going to move to New York. She's like, fuck it. I'm going to do theater. I'm going to restart my career. But 6 weeks later, she would be dead. Part 7, Brittany Murphy. So let's talk about the house for a second. So I see a lot of people commenting it. I have seen the TikTok as well. How Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears lived in the house before. And a makeup artist of Britney Spears's said that somebody like spiritual came to the house and told Britney something about the house. Britney already did not like the house. Britney Spears already did not like the house. And after this spiritual person basically warned her about the house, she left and she never went back. And they sold the house to Brittany Murphy and Simon. And a couple years later, they were dead. Also, apparently Brittany Murphy was very unsettled by this house, and whenever they were driving home, she would beg Simon to let them stay in a hotel that she did not like the house. So, that's fucking awful. Also, Brittany had been feeling sick. She was getting like over-the-counter stuff, you know, what you take for colds and coughs and stuff like that, and she was feeling really weak and really lethargic. I'm sorry, I can't move on for a minute because I have to say this. You know when you're uncomfortable in your own house. And if you felt it, you know what I'm talking about. You know when you're not wanted. You know when you walk into a place that is not your house. So, exactly. So, for somebody to say, I want to go to a hotel, and if that person, apparently she was very spiritual, extremely spiritual, very much into natural remedies, whatever. I mean, she still took over-the-counter cold medication, like she's not, whatever. But if I'm with somebody who's spiritual and in tune with themselves, and they say, I don't like it here, we're going to the fucking hotel. You know when you walk into a place and it's wrong. That's why Britney Spears called the person to come over. You fucking know. Sometimes you don't even need to be in tune, but I know that you know, even as a kid, that you would go somewhere and you'd be like, this isn't right. You fucking know. And I've told every person I've ever been with. I told my family, if I say that I don't want to be here, we're not going to be here. Do you understand? And you have to believe me, you know? Anyway, on the morning of December 10th, Brittany Murphy was complaining about stomach pains. And I don't know why. If you want to listen to it, you can. I think it's cruel to listen to the 911 call. However, so the 911 call is very frantic. It's very upsetting. I mean, you're literally hearing a mother watch her daughter pass. It's extreme and feeling very helpless. That she's trying to talk to the 911 operator about what's going on. She can barely catch her breath. She's hysterical. But at the end of the call, when the paramedics arrive, something... Okay, part 8, Brittany Murphy. So, as I was saying, the 911 call, I don't know why these YouTube... It's heartbreaking to hear, but at the end of the call, so they go through this whole thing, like, it's so hard to listen to. Like, she's basically like, she's not breathing, and you know how like 911 operators, have to like remain calm, but you still want to like punch them in the fucking face. Like, ma'am, please don't scream at me. But then maybe you should listen to it at the end. So she's hysterical. Sharon's hysterical, and then at the end, the EMTs show up, and she's like, okay, thank you. Like, the tone, I'm telling you, she's like, like, as a mother would be. And then the EMTs are like, oh, okay, they're here, thank you. It's just a very, like, clear change, whatever. And I've never been in that situation, so I don't know what I would be like, and I don't want to judge someone for that. But it was kind of weird to hear. Apparently, Brittany's last words when they found her, she looked up at Sharon and said, "Mommy, I can't catch my breath, help me." The day before she did an interview, she went to some red carpet, which is crazy because apparently she felt so shitty. And they said, what were her plans? She said that she wanted to start having a family with Simon immediately. But she was really excited to start her family. This is where shit gets weird. There are so many theories. So she passes, right? And the world is like, what the fuck? Because she's 32. She's very young, right? So Simon and Sharon, her mom, start doing interviews. And there's one with Matt Lauer that I cannot find. But it was weird. I remember watching and being like, this is fucking weird. He's like looking at Matt Lauer. He's like, ultimately, what killed Brittany is the way that Hollywood treated Brittany Murphy. And Hollywood has blood on its hands, and I hope they wash their hands with hot water. Weird. And the autopsy report comes back, and she has an iron deficiency, like anemia, pneumonia, and like various intoxicants. She had like 10 prescription pills in her house. The moment the media saw 10 different drugs, intoxicants in her system, immediately it was a drug overdose. Everybody was like, it was a drug overdose. Like, nobody even cared to like look. And they were like cold medication, and she was on some like natural remedies to like for the cold. But immediately everyone was like, oh, drug overdose. So Simon had to come out and be like, no. Sorry, part 9. So she's on like a bunch of like cold stuff, like nothing crazy. And Simon comes out and he's like, that's her natural physique. She's a tiny woman, whatever. And she wasn't taking anything that would speed up her heart or affect her negatively like that in any way. Then I have to find it. Simon, I have to close my laptop because I was trying to find it, but I had to talk to you one-on-one. Simon does this fucking interview. I literally get goosebumps thinking about it. He does the weirdest fucking interview I've literally ever seen. Mind you, also, let me just say this. It is so fucking weird that Simon is sick 5 weeks before and brings it from Puerto Rico, and she dies 5 weeks later. And so how do I even say this? He started telling people that he felt like he was being watched all the time, and that there were helicopters sometimes over the house, like paranoid. I read the coroner's report. Apparently, like, she has a history of diabetes in her family, and she had a slight, like a very minor heart condition and really, really heavy girl time. But, okay, when they were in Puerto Rico and they left, they didn't leave right away. She walked off the set the first day after Simon was drunk, right? While they were there, they stayed for like 2 weeks because that's how long she was going to stay in Puerto Rico regardless. Like, that's how long she was going to film for. So they said, whatever, let's just stay, the three of us. And she also brought her dog, her Maltese. And so they stayed, and while they were there, Sharon and Simon got sick. So according to the coroner's report, she had pneumonia, and she had like a staph infection that was resistant to antibiotics. Okay. So she passed away. Poor baby, right? But then fucking Simon does this interview with Radar Online that I cannot find online. I know that it exists. I know that it's real because I remember seeing it. And the house is so dark, and you can tell he's not in a good place at fucking all. He's like destroyed. Who wouldn't be? But he does this weird thing in the beginning, and I can't stop thinking about it. They're like walking in the house, and he like points to a camera as he's walking in. He's like, we have 56 cameras around the house. And he says it like looking, like making sure that whoever's watching can hear him. That's what it is. That's what freaks me the fuck out. And there are these government conspiracies about Brittany Murphy. Part 10, Brittany Murphy. So this gets a little fucking weird. So all of a sudden, Angelo, yeah, her dad is like, I need to get to the bottom of what happened to my little girl, and starts doing interviews. He has not seen this person since she was 2, so obviously opportunistic, but he's giving interviews and statements, and the press is eating it up because Brittany Murphy passed away, and there's so many questions. She was a healthy girl that had stomach pains and then just dropped dead. So Angelo's doing all these interviews, and then 5 months later, Simon passes away from pneumonia. And people are like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Okay, so people are like, hold on, where she lives, that house, she's like by the water and the conditions, it's easy for mold. It must be mold. And Sharon is like, there's no mold. There's no mold. There's no mold. There's no mold. And then all of a sudden, people are like, oh, the house is tented. Like they're doing mold, like they're checking for mold. And people are like, then suddenly she's like, okay, yeah, there's mold. And she sues the people who built the house, or like whatever. And they settle it out of court. But a lot of people are like, the 2 young people who are healthy die, but Sharon, who is older and has more, Sharon, who's older and has more health conditions, is fine and survives. Like, what? So they settle that out of court. Then comes this woman named Julia. So Julia, she worked at the border, okay? And she said that one day on July 4th that year, the border control, whatever the fuck they're called, those assholes, get a tip that some terrorists are going to try to come into the country, right? So as she's watching the border, she sees someone waving in all these people without like processing them. So she panics and she goes to tell her superiors, but it's July 4th. So they're all off. So she goes above their heads, right? According to this person, she was extremely close to Brittany Murphy, like sisters, and she started receiving death threats from people in the U.S. government. This is real. This is real. Started getting threats from the U.S. government that her and everyone she loves is now in trouble, and that 5 months later, Brittany Murphy was dead, and so was her husband, because she had been talking a lot about what was going on at work. Her and Angelo team up to try to figure out what is really going on. So part 11. So this woman, Julia and Angelo, her father, team up to try to prove that Simon and Brittany's death was part of government interference. That the government did not like all the things that they knew about the way that they were handling the border. And remember, Julia says she was like a sister to me. We were so close, we were like family. But this woman cannot show one photo of them together or proof of one conversation. Sharon says, and it's true, many people agree, or like can verify that Sharon and Brittany were literally never apart. Brittany told everybody that like the moment she told her mom, I want to go to California and become a star, her mother packed up her life and moved her to California, and she was forever indebted to her mother. And then when her mother had breast cancer, Brittany was at her beck and call and at her bedside 24/7, 365. And Brittany at one point said, to say that my mother and I are best friends doesn't even cover it, is not even close, right? So I think if someone were to see Julia, it would be Sharon. And Sharon is like, I've never seen esta pendeja. I've never seen this girl in my entire life. And they're like, can you show us an email? She's like, no, it's been wiped. Can you show us a text message? My phone was stolen. Can you show us a photo of you guys together? Anything. And she can't come up with it. So, and then Angelo and Julia are like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to come up, we're going to make a movie. We're going to make a movie about Brittany's life. So the moment somebody tries to make shmoneys, like, I'm like, okay, never mind. But they think that they were poisoned. As for the mold, when I was hearing about this and I was like, oh, it's black mold, I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. But now people are like, we did many walkthroughs of the house and there was never any mold. Many inspections happened. There was never mold. Sharon settling that out of court is weird. Is very weird. Okay, I gotta tell you the weirdest fucking thing. And this is the weirdest thing. So they did this whole photo shoot together. It's so creepy. But then when Sharon was doing this interview about the house, she was taking a camera crew around the house, and she went into Simon's bedroom and she was telling them about the room or whatever, and then she touched the bed. She goes, and this was my side of the bed. That they would spoon. She said that they would hold each other at night and they would spoon. What? I don't know. That to me, before she died, she was training for this movie with a dance coach day in and day out because she was certain she was going to get it. Black Swan. But they said that she was too thin. And then Natalie Portman won the Oscar, and apparently she was devastated because she's like, this role would have changed my career. And it's true, it would have. But Natalie Portman killed it. Mila Kunis killed it. But I can't even imagine. But apparently she was training day in and day out. Part 12. So many people are like, oh, this story with Julia and the Border Patrol is insane. But then other people have come out and said, no, it's true. No, it's true because once the government found out what Brittany knew, they threatened to take away Simon's visa and deport him. And that's why they had such a quick engagement and quickie marriage, like very private Jewish ceremony, because they were trying to deport Simon. And it's because Julia told Brittany about the border and the terrorists that were let in. And Julia has told news that the only reason Sharon is saying that she's never seen her before is because of Julia's very close friendship to Angelo, who Sharon hates. And that Sharon is scared of the government. Other people say the reason they got married so quickly is because Simon had a shit ton of debt. He was married before meeting Brittany, and she got like the ex-wife got a lot of money, and that Simon was a very successful con man, and that he was also extremely paranoid and in return, Brittany became very paranoid. So they became this couple that never left their house. A lot of people say like there was a point where they were just always together with Sharon in the house and would not leave. Another group of people say they were alone all the time because they were practicing holistic medicine and they only wanted to be around spiritually enlightened people. Sounds a little culty to me, Marge. Sounds a little culty to me. Sounds a little cult leader to me. But because they were so all about like enlightenment and holistic healing, that is why they did not take Brittany to the doctor. Which breaks my fucking heart. That apparently at one point Brittany wanted to go to the hospital. And Simon was like, no, we can do this. You know, hospitals are so full of germs. Also, Simon had a warrant out for his arrest in Virginia for like over $400,000 for credit card fraud. So that probably very much added to his paranoia. He was also like evicted from like over 3 homes. I think like 5 homes. So of course he wanted to stay home all the time. He didn't know when he was going to lose it. Like, you know. Part 13. I just want to say this. When Brittany Murphy died, her husband tried to like put together this like event, like the Brittany Murphy Foundation, and a seat was going for like $1,000 to $10,000, and then it came out like, wait, this guy like never registered this like foundation, so he was like, oh fuck, my bad, I'll return all the money, and then it was like he like canceled because of health issues, and then he died. And then like her dad is trying to make like money off a movie with her best friend. I'm sorry, I don't believe that shit for a fucking second. I think whatever happened at the border definitely happened for her, or like something like that. And she wanted to bring attention to like her losing her job or something like that. And she saw Brittany Murphy and she was just like, I'm going to do this. I think she's crazy. Personally, that's just me. If it comes out that I'm wrong, then I'll take it on the chin, whatever. In one of Simon's last interviews, he was like, Hollywood hated Brittany because she married me, because I don't look like Ashton Kutcher. And in Hollywood, people want famous people to marry famous people, which is not even fucking true. Liar. People just didn't like you. And may he rest in peace. I'm not talking ill of the dead. Anyway, after Brittany's death, her mom auctioned off all of her clothes, all of her belongings, and her passport for money. And this is the only time I'll side with Angelo. He was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your passport. And if you love Uptown Girls, she sold that gold floral dress for like $1,500 on that fucking online auction. She auctioned off her credit card. She auctioned off her checkbook. Is that fucking weird? That's fucking weird. So it's really weird, but I'm going to leave you with this. Sharon once told somebody that it freaked her out that before Simon died, he told her he was having hallucinations, that things were crawling out of his skin and trying to bring him down into the floor. And that house sold for $12 million. That house sold. And you won't see me stepping foot into that bitch. Ever. Okay, so if you want to listen to these episodes, it's an episode on a podcast called We Need to Talk About Brittany, and the makeup artist's name is Julianne Kay, Kaye. And then they have a follow-up episode. So that episode is like February 2021, and then later on in March 2021, they have an episode called Brittany's Haunted House with Heather Auble and John E.L. Tenney. The description reads as follows. This week, we open the doors to the mysticism surrounding Britney Spears and dig deeper into the story of the haunted house she sold to Brittany Murphy and her husband in 2003 after a Reiki healer supposedly opened a spirit portal that gave way to a disturbed male and female ghost whose presence shook the pop star to her core. Later, Brittany Murphy and her husband died in the home.
So I think what happens a lot, we talk sometimes about some of the things that I'll be saying, again, like I said, you won't hear on television shows just because they're a little too heady for paranormal reality television. But there is a concept in the paranormal, ghost hunting, psychical research community that are called like tulpas and egregores and thought forms. And this is the idea that if you think about something enough, it starts to manifest and it starts to grow. And it wasn't anything before. It was solely created by someone thinking about it. And so you can have, like, if people tell tales about haunted house in your neighborhood, over 30 or 40 years of all the little kids looking at that house, telling stories about that house will become haunted. And so you have a place like Brittany's old house, and you have Brittany Murphy totally talking of, like, I hate this place, I hate it. And she's feeding into this thought form. She's feeding into this energy that's there, and she's only feeding it negativity. So that's all it knows. So that's all it's going to want, because it doesn't know it can have anything else, because it's not a thing until you create it. And so now it's drawing negativity to it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily evil from the get-go. It just means that that's what it knows, and so that's what it's being.
Like the law of attraction.
To a certain degree, yeah. I know that all of this sounds totally insane, but like it's things that people should think about, because we go through our everyday life, like, and things just happen to us, and we say like, oh, that was just a random event, or that was a coincidence, or whatever. But I mean, the dictionary definition of a coincidence are seemingly related events which are related for no seemingly discernible reason, which is a bullshit answer. That means a coincidence happens for a reason that we don't know why. And so it's a way to brush off all of the strange that they happen. There's no reason why when you break up with someone, every song that you hear for the next 2 days is a sad.
Determined to get her career back on track, Brittany studies ballet at a dance studio. Golden Koschuk helps her prepare for an audition for the lead in Black Swan.
She had a perfect body for ballet. She was thin. All her muscle structure was strong. Maybe a little bit too thin. You know, that's something we talked about with her.
Ultimately, Brittany doesn't win the role in Black Swan, a film that would earn Natalie Portman an Oscar.
Brittany's career just sort of took a nosedive.
I can't move my head because I picked it on my pimples here. You can probably see. But she was devastated about the part. I gave it a Google. Her team was devastated. But Natalie won the award because they knew it's what Brittany wanted. But unfortunately, when Natalie won the Oscar, Brittany was not on this realm. So, I apologize. And you know, I tried to film this video 4 fucking times and Mercury won't let me. Am I blaming the planets? Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody have a nice time, and I'm only showing you this side of my face. I think I'm going to do Tiger Woods next. Yeah, that feels right. Or Liam and Miley. Or Liam and Miley. So what I remember, and I could be wrong, I'm wrong a lot. Not that I like to admit it. But Brittany Murphy's dad wanted things to be tested in a lab of his choosing, so he sent all this stuff to this lab or whatever. And then they came back and they're like, there are a lot of toxins that could be rat poisoning, which is weird for a lab to tell you what things could be. And then also a lot of metals, like toxic metals. But then another lab was like, Brittany Murphy dyed her hair. That could just be like the hair dye. So it's hard. I love this. I love this angle. Yep.